It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.
Yo, man. Boom, it's Rusty. What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday here on the Quantum Global Broadcasting Network, QGBN. And I'm your host, Rusty Diamond, on the Public Access Podcast, the podcast. Check out other great shows on the network, such as When the Gloves Come Off, the Thinking Man's Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is It With Lizzie and Saved by the Ben. Show is brought to you by Fred Ben Savage's Buck, Stoner Eats Productions, Hardcore Entertainment, Hypnosis is Great, and Sock'emUp.org. Thank you, everyone, for being here. If you want, you can come and leave a message, and I'll play it on here. Or maybe you don't want to leave a message, and that's fine.
Messages? Messages? We don't leave no stinking messages!
But I do. So give those a call, 503-974-6420. Leave a message, and I'll play it here on the play place, Pee-wee's Playhouse, the podcast. Who knows, man? Maybe fucking Cowboy Curtis will show up here, or Missy Vaughn, or who knows? Who knows? Maybe Cherry or Terry. I don't know. Anyway, you guys, I want to bring on my guest, who's I don't believe has any connection with Pee-wee's Playhouse, but maybe. But bring my special guest on here, right now. We have Dr. Fred. How you doing, Dr. Fred?
Hey, Rusty, good to be here. Thanks for having me. Really great to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise. So I see in the background you have a trampoline. Are you a trampolinist? I don't know if that's the
Yeah,
correct term.
rebounder. A rebounder is one way to look at it. But yeah, I do a little bit of rebounding here and there. I got to pull the trampoline down off the mantle, of course, to use it.
Yeah. So what do you do on there? Are you jumping for a while?
No,
is that a morning
normally
thing?
I had a pretty significant medical event in a few months ago. So normally I just do kind of some walking on it. Before that, I was doing a little more jumping, but I had a life-threatening event in March. And so that was really changed the way that I handle myself physically.
And so I don't know if you want to get into this at
Sure.
all. So what happened then?
I was actually working out in this room. This was the computer, and I was over there and doing some stretching, and I felt something pop, and my trainer's like, "Do you have a cramp?" And I was like, "No, dude, this is not a cramp." And it turned out that it was a dissecting ruptured aortic aneurysm coming right out of my heart. So my aorta split like a bad pair of pants right into my chest. And that's a big deal, of course.
So, I mean, what happened? Your trainer was watching you.
He was watching me online. Yeah. He was yeah.
Did he call 911 or
No, he told me to go find my wife, which I did. And then we called 911 and they came over here in about five or 10 minutes and brought me to the local hospital, which didn't have any kind of the facilities necessary to actually deal with something this big. So they transferred me 50 miles away into Sacramento. I took a truck and sure enough, Dr. Rodriguez was waiting for me and split my chest open down the middle. I did emergency open heart surgery on that day.
Whoa. And so nothing like this had happened before?
No, absolutely. Of course not. No, not even close. I was a beast. I'm a beast. You know, I was working out every day and taking great care of myself and the whole thing.
And then, so what happened once you woke up then from after this procedure?
Well, after the procedure, they put me in the ICU. They gave me a kind of too small of a bed for a few days until I finally got a bed that was at least 6'3", which I am. And I continued to recover in the ICU. And did step by step in the hospital setting, and sure enough, I got let out. Got good care taking care of me since then. I'm eating well and drinking well. Everything is working. I'm thinking. I'm in creating conversations, still coaching, and creating podcasts and still writing, all these things. So I have a new lease on life, of course, and a new way of looking at how to go about what it is that I do here. Why am I even here in the first place, after all?
And so has your approach changed with how you're coaching after this? Has that changed anything, or has that stayed sort of constant? Or
Yeah, I think the actual approach hasn't shifted so much. It's just there's a new resolve, a new understanding that no fluff, no frills, no gimmicks. I'm just a good coach, and I'm a good coach with a ton of experience, and I can walk people through the next phase of their life if they want some assistance in making their life work. And that's just what I do, and instead of competing with all the frills that are out there, there's all sorts of gimmicks and all sorts of like editing and all sorts of promotional styles and marketing and music and flashy, shiny objects and things that people use to get as if that represents a good coach. I really just get that I'm here to just help people through the next phase of their life. And I'm pretty experienced at it and pretty good at it. And, just a matter of that's just what I do. And if someone wants assistance with getting through the next phase of their life, I might be a good person to tap on and see if that's going to be a good combination.
so you said you're living in Northern California, but
Yeah.
you sound like you're from Michigan.
I am from Michigan. It's true.
Whereabouts on the mitten are you?
I am in the Detroit area is where I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I caught on to that. And it wasn't making sense for a little bit. I'm like, this guy says California, does not sound like California. But
And where in
so
Michigan are you from?
I'm not from Michigan. I have some people that I am close with that are from Michigan. So
Okay.
I was actually looking at a place a few years back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but it was over on the west coast of Michigan, so the other side of the state. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was looking at some like getting a place out there, but yeah, it didn't pan out. But
It's okay.
yeah, it was all right by me, and I ended up where I ended up, and I'm glad with where I ended up.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Where are you now?
I'm in Connecticut right now. I've
Okay.
kind of been all over the last 4 years. I was in a couple places in Minnesota, and then I was in Salt Lake City, and then now I'm out in Connecticut. So
Okay.
yeah, but I was in Portland, Oregon before that for
All right.
ever. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of all over, lots of moving, but yeah, it's how life goes. So
Yeah, it is. You just
just
find yourself wherever you find yourself. And sometimes you move from place to place like a rolling
yeah,
stone.
right. And so what brought you out from Michigan to California? Was that a
Oh,
long
it's a
time
long
ago?
ride. It was a long ride. It wasn't directly from Michigan to California, but I lived in Michigan, and then I went to school. I grew up in Michigan, and I was really enchanted with the whole idea of communication. I had two older brothers and my parents, and they were talking a lot, and I wanted to learn how to talk well. And in elementary school, there is no elementary school teacher who's forgotten having me as a student, for sure. I talked a lot in school. I was sort of the class clown, and I was pretty smart because I had these brothers who taught me how to be pretty precocious. And eventually I ended up going to the University of Michigan after a school failed me. Like, I just wanted to really learn how to communicate, and there was no room for communication in any of the conventional educational system in junior high or high school. So I thought that would happen in Ann Arbor, and I went to Ann Arbor for a little bit and then dropped out of there because that wasn't very good either. And I came out here to Berkeley. At least that was my first ride to California to find myself. And that kind of worked okay, but I only lasted a summer, and I was convinced to go back and try school one more time. And I did that. There was a new industry that my family was really curious about whether I'd be good at. It was the up and coming industry of the future. It was something called computers. And the
Oh,
only
that old thing. I
you've
think
heard of
I've
that,
heard
right?
something
Yeah.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere.
computers were the only computer in Michigan was at the University of Michigan at the time. So I went back to the University of Michigan, tried that out for a little while. And I didn't want to do batch jobs and punch cards. So I left again, and this time promised never to go back to school. But I got a job working in a state mental health facility with adolescent boys. And there I began to really communicate effectively and really began to heal and to coach. I mean, that's really when the whole thing started. And that was in 1980. And what I really learned is that communication and connection is at the heart of all healing, of all conditions, of all types, all the time. And
Right.
I really decided that psychiatry, I didn't like psychiatry at all. I went into psychiatry because I disliked it and I thought that it needed a big shift. So I went in with the idea that I might be able to bring communication to a field that was already headed in some ways down the pharmacological route. And Prozac got introduced to the world while I was training. That totally changed the world drastically. And I continued to want to be a communicator. But when I came out of my training, there I was already typecast to be a diagnoser and a psychopharmacologist, because that's what psychiatrists do. For the next 30 years, that's what I ended up doing. And not very happy about most of it, very duplicitously.
And so, were you speaking out against it, or was that would that kind of had red flagged you and put you not in the good,
Yeah.
with the board of
Well,
psychology?
the board wouldn't have cared so much if I spoke out, but I didn't speak out that much. I just ended up being somebody who tried to, nudge in communication along the sides, along with medicating people. And I often told my my colleagues and my peers that I thought that medicines didn't do what they were supposed to do, and sometimes they actually cause more problems than they help, and sometimes they perpetuate the symptoms they're marketed to treat, or even cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat. So in 2006, as a decade and a half later, I started doing something radical, which was apparently as radical, was take people off of medicine. And I took my clients off of medicine, and lo and behold, they got reliably way better, and so they got way better than they were even when they started. And oftentimes the diagnosis just slipped away. And I really began to learn that these medicines were not doing what they were supposed to. And I began to speak up a little bit more after that.
And so, how were your patients reacting when you said that you wanted to take them off the medication? Were they some hesitant, or were some pretty excited about the opportunity of not having to?
Yeah, I only took the ones off who were excited about it, and almost everyone was excited about it, because it turns out that most people really just don't like taking medicine to change the way they think. And also, these things, they tend to be very muting and muffling and stifling, these medicines. They tend to really they tend to be over inclusive in what they kind of stop. The antidepressants may stop for a moment your depression, but they stop every other mood too. And so that can get pretty old, the whole blunting aspect. So my patients were pretty happy that I was doing that, especially since when they get their lives back, they got their own freedom and their power returned to them. And people generally respect that.
And so, what year was this, you said?
That was about 2006 when I started doing that.
Okay. And so, what was kind of the prescriptions they were trying to push then around 2006 when you decided to
Oh, they're
get
not that
them?
different than the ones now, the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety agents, the antipsychotics, the anticonvulsants for, mood disorder. So, Zoloft and Prozac and Paxil and Wellbutrin and Effexor as the antidepressants, and then the antipsychotics like Zyprexa or Seroquel or Risperdal, or Haldol, or any of the older ones, and then the anti-anxiety agents as well, Xanax and Ativan and Klonopin, and the anticonvulsants, which is sort of Depakote and Tegretol and gabapentin and those.
And so okay, so then once every one of your clients who decided to stop were off it, what were they I mean, how were they acting? How were they? What were they telling you? Were people
Oh, in
just
general, there was usually a remarkable change in their attitude because they really would get their life back. These medicines really don't do what they say they do. I mean, they really tend to be very muting and very muffling. And so these are people that were really generally quite happy to have their life back. Now, in some situations, ironically, the families didn't want their person to have their life back. The family liked the person being sick, and they would be hesitant. They like the person before the person would start talking and start saying their truth, and it wasn't really welcome in a system where there might have been secrets or might have been things that they didn't want to hear. So the person became a little bit more free to actually be themselves, and not every system was ready to have the identified patient become somebody who could actually speak their mind. And
and you can't
that's where
just
the pushback came from.
you can't just give people lobotomy anymore either. You can't do the old Kennedy method of giving out. I assume that's not really a thing. But I mean, so
These medicines are really all about lobotomy. They're all about chemical lobotomy. In fact, when Thorazine was first invented, that was the whole draw to it, is a understanding that Thorazine could do the same thing that a lobotomy did through a pill. That was why it was so exciting.
Okay. And so, I mean, is that still something that's even still prescribed? Is
Oh
that, or
yeah.
is that,
Oh yeah, these medicines still are prescribed for sure.
and so are you, I mean, obviously, yeah, you're not for those. And so, I mean, are you, since are you still considered part of the uh psychology community, or have you been
Psychiatry.
psychiatry? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm a doctor. I'm an MD, and I don't do any conventional work anymore. I call myself the undoctor because I undiagnose people, I unmedicate people, and then I undoctrinate people.
And so, I mean, so once people, I guess, yeah, are on Thorazine or other
Mhm.
drugs like that, is there any coming back from it, or is it
It's a
kind of
good question.
already
Some
done?
of these medicines do have long-term effects, it appears, long after they even are stopped. Some of the conditions that they're called side effects, sometimes they last on, like the Thorazine and the antipsychotics have a couple different associated conditions that are associated with it long-term, even after you stop, like tardive dyskinesia would be one of those. And that's like a movement disorder that even lasts longer than the drug itself. But in most cases, our bodies are so resilient and so capable of healing, as long as we treat them right, that we can recover from nearly everything and get, there's people who have recovered from massive events and massive diseases and conditions, and find themselves back to normal because our bodies are remarkable machines that really want to heal. And so we can usually heal from a run of psychiatric medicines as well.
And so, did you have any patients that were on Thorazine or something like that when they came to you, or was that something that?
No, but
Really?
we acquire patients that have all sorts of medicines. So over time, I certainly acquired patients. I don't think I started very many patients on Thorazine, but there was a lot of patients who came into my practice already taking that medicine, and not just Thorazine, many drugs that are Thorazine-like that, so you don't have to focus specifically on Thorazine. Thorazine is just one of the oldest ones.
So what are some of the other ones?
Like Haldol or Trilipon or Risperdal or Zyprexa, Seroquel, Geodon. Those are the antipsychotics.
And so, as far as seeing stuff on TV as commercials, or do you have this kind of go talk to your doctor of sorts? And I mean, you don't see commercials for that. I mean, you see commercials for everything else, but is that just something that, I mean, was there ever commercials for?
I have no idea. I'm sure there was. They've been very well marketed to the doctors. That's the targeted population for this would be the doctors, because The patients don't come in asking for those medicines. They come in with a set of complaints or concerns, and the doctor is trained to hear different buzzwords and then start these medicines if he hears them.
And so you were also saying about having a family member who may, spill some secrets or something. How were they being treated kind of before they ended up wanting to, give them some sort of quote unquote treatment?
I'm not sure I
Towards that.
understand it. Well, I'm not sure I understand the question exactly.
So if those families who are trying to hold one of their family members back with what would eventually become, giving them Thorazine or a lobotomy or, whatever, if they're the same. What do you know if there were any things the families were doing to these other family members beforehand, and then all of a sudden, this option came up to do this? Is that making sense, or is that still not making
Yeah,
sense?
there's all sorts of different ways to enter the system. Even right now, you bring somebody, if you bring your family member, even your wife or your spouse or your child or your parent to the emergency room, and you say that they're seeing Napoleon, or they're acting weird, or they picked up a knife and threatened me, or they, forgot their name, or they no longer can find their car, or you say whatever you say, that's an entryway into the psychiatric system. And once you get that done, then it's really no holds barred what the psychiatric system might throw at you, including institutionalization or any of the different medicine regimens that are out there.
Because in California, there's the 5150,
Right.
which
every state has the involuntary laws, just like the 5150.
So is that is it all kind of the same as 72 up to 72 hours? Is that right?
72-hour hold. And I think every state has something very close to a 3-day hold associated with it. And it doesn't take very much to get somebody, put on a 3-day hold. It takes very little, actually, extremely little.
And so has there been any sort of fight back or pushback with that be with any people like yourself or anything like that trying to, or do you think that the 3-day hold's a good thing for the
No,
most
of course
part?
I don't. Of course I don't think the 3-day hold is necessarily a good thing, but the pushback, there hasn't been an adequate pushback in any way to actually make any difference. I think most people believe that that the law itself, or the cascade, the sequence of 5150 is put in place to keep the community safe. So people get the idea that if someone's dangerous to themselves or dangerous to others, they should be able to go to a safe place like a hospital and be put in against their will, and then monitored and observed and see if there's any real problem. And that's the essence of why the 5150 persists, is the idea of, somehow making the world safe again against the people who might deserve a 5150 or something. But 5150s are so easy to invoke, and that's where the real problem comes in.
And so with the
Oh, I don't hear you. I miss it.
Oh,
1 second.
okay.
1 second. Let's try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so with a lot of these facilities that were housing a lot of long-term patients closing down, where do you think that's kind of left whoever may have been in there before? Or do you think that those places were necessary to have around, or do you think there are better ways to work with long-term
Well,
inpatient?
they're basic hellholes for sure. So you wouldn't want anybody that you love treated in most of those places. The asylums are very much like a prison. The walls are the same, that you have equal access to getting out, which is zero. You're held behind, essentially behind, closed doors, locked doors, and they are tremendous intrusions on basic human rights. So I don't, it's like saying, am I opposed to prisons? Am I opposed to jails? And that's a much more of like a philosophical question, which is like, is there such thing as a person who's better off away from the world? Is that, it's certainly not a place to be safe. The idea that it's safer in there than in the world is a complete myth. It's not safer in a hospital or safer in a jail than it is outside in the community here.
As far as the people around them, or for the person that's going into
In
it?
both cases, yeah.
And so, do you have a better solution, or is that like, if there was one, hopefully they'd be going towards it, or
Well, if I
moving
was to
towards
give
it?
a better solution, it maybe rubs up against some people, like it's not sure for anybody, is that what people want more than anything is to be heard for who they are. You might notice that when I worked in the prisons, or I work in the jails, or I work in the inpatient units, or I work in the nursing homes where there's locked doors, but where my success comes in is when I can have a conversation with someone and respect them and accept them and forgive them and love them for who they are. When people feel like they're heard and gotten for really who they are, there's a tremendous amount of healing that happens instantaneously. And that's what we're talking about here.
And so, I mean, what percentage of people that, hypothetically, and this is a hard question then, would benefit, if you,
What
for this, I
percentage?
mean, yeah, I mean, percentage of people who could possibly become helped by being heard, if the people who are already in the system.
100% of people can be helped by being heard. There's no person who can't be helped by being heard. You, me, everyone. That what we want more than anything is to be heard.
And so why is that? So the wild truth of that is it just because it's easier to not get to that part and keep people in this perpetual state of this kind of,
People are strange, and people are violent in their needs. They have their own wants and they have their own deficiencies and their own core wounds, etc. And people can be very mean to each other. People can be really, there's a climbing on other people's back, claiming an us versus them, that those people over there are worse than us, that we have the right way of doing things and they have the wrong way to do things. And that those kind of people should be eliminated from society. That, this is not a new phenomena. This is part of the human condition. And, listening to someone that you disagree with is a difficult chore. As you know, in the last few years, people have a hard time listening to somebody who disagrees with them on fundamental issues. They tend to just
right?
close them out.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced that a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, saw a lot of people lose a lot of friends, and just because, yeah, like just saying, I don't want to hear this person, or I only want to hear
Anything.
people who think the same way I do. I just want to
Right.
hear what I'm doing is right, which is, kind of the same thing. Them wanting to be heard and feeling that their thoughts are valid and being heard, whereas they're doing the same thing of, I don't want to hear this person, and then kind of wondering why people are getting upset when they're like, they don't even want to, not even giving someone the chance to explain their point of view, or trying to find as many differences as possible without trying to find any common ground, and
Exactly.
losing the gray area. And if with then there's always balance in everything, and you got to have both extremes. You got to have a bunch of gray in the middle, and
Right.
without that, there's no no real existence. And so it becomes sort of this fabricated fantasy land of, as long as only I believe that, these people that think exactly the same as me, until something comes along, and no matter if there's 99 other things they're perfectly aligned on, if there's one thing that they are aligned on, all of a sudden they're out of the group, and it's and just becomes sort of a uh, kind of waiting game. When is my turn gonna be up? When is the when is the society going to turn on me?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I just think, yeah, that being able to, yeah, listen to people is important. Even, yeah, I mean, if you disagree with them, and it's okay to disagree with people, and
Sure.
as long as, yeah, well, I mean, as long as they're being heard, and that's and so when so you're not working with any of these, like, prisons or any of that stuff anymore.
Right. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any institutional conventional psychiatric work anymore, because all they really wanted me to do was diagnose and medicate people, and I just can't do that anymore.
So what was the breaking point that you got to where you said, I'm done with this, like,
Yeah.
this is it?
So 2006, what I described, that was one breaking point when I started taking people off of medicine. But there were several times in 2010, I was working in a prison in Indiana, and it wasn't a prison, it was a psychiatric hospital, but it could have been a prison, it just wasn't. And they were asking me to do things like extend people's stay, like, sign off on why this person should be here another year. And I didn't often think that the person should be there another year. I thought that they were actually okay, but I wasn't allowed to actually write that. Instead, my job was to extend everybody who showed up in my office to another year. And I just finally had to quit that job.
So did the people that were in there, the patients, were they then, like, they're going in to talk to you thinking that maybe this is my chance to get out, but then before then they're fine, they're learning that they're going to have another year or something. Are they going back to the other patients and saying that this guy, and just kind of maybe putting blame on you? Or do
Well,
you
they
think
should
that
put blame on me. They should. I'm the one who signs off on this stuff. I am the blame. I'm the reason they have to stay another year, and that was intolerable. So I had to quit that job as well. I quit a number of jobs in my career.
what other jobs have you quit?
Well, I had a lot of jobs in nursing. Psychiatry really asked the doctor to do many different things that I wasn't aligned with, including medicating people that didn't need medication, or giving people diagnoses that I didn't think they met the criteria for. Actually just clamping down on civil rights and clamping down on people's capacity to actually live a free life, rather than just being disturbed in what otherwise is a very disturbing world. Like, it's okay to be disturbed in an otherwise very disturbing world. It's okay to be depressed in a depressing world. It's okay to be nervous about a future that's very uncertain. And it's okay to be confused. It's okay to be scattered. It's okay not to get your work done. It's okay to be afraid that people are watching you. It's all okay, because all those things are happening.
Right. And so are you having people that, how do I say this? So I guess other professionals, are there other professionals around that are doing sort of the same work as you are, that are upset with you, or like publicly upset with you? Or if anyone called you up and started saying, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you exposing what's going on? You're hurting my livelihood? Or is
I'm
that
sure there
kind
are
of
people who believe that, but so far I haven't been harassed very often by that group.
Yes.
I think the mental health field is clearly very broken, and I don't think that that's a secret to anybody. It's not like the system is working. We don't have
Yeah.
very good evidence that the mental health system is working. So this, the people stand on their high horse and to tell me that the mental health system is working, they're the ones who are going to look pretty foolish.
Right. And so, yeah. And so then there's just the whole getting to the a better mental health situation. And I mean, so two of the things you said were, yeah, taking people off of these drugs and listening to making sure everyone feels that they're heard. Is there anything else that you would feel would be beneficial as well to the
Well, when
advancement of?
when you're when you're listening to people so that they're heard, you might want to get that there might be nothing wrong with them, no matter what you think. You might think that someone who thinks like that, or who does that, or who looks like that, or cares for themselves that way, or they wear those kind of clothes, or they hang out in that kind of atmosphere, that there's something wrong. Homeless people or something like that. You might think there's something wrong with them. But when you're listening to someone for their true and honest self, I invite people to really just drop all those preconceptions and get that all that's really there is another human being trying to get through life just like you. And when you can do that, when you can get that you're not that different from anybody else in the world, you might get that that mental illness itself is simply a vague and nebulous conversation that's subject to full-scale transformation of the narrative.
And so, do you think that there are? I mean, so there's a lot of other people who are doing, other kinds of coaching work, um, to kind of, I guess, yeah, kind of get away from the rest of, you know, um, not really buying into the mental health game that's going on. And so, is there community between other thinkers like yourself, or is it sort of everyone for themselves and hopefully enough people make enough noise?
Well, there's not a lot of psychiatrists who think like me, because by the time you're a psychiatrist who thinks like me, you've probably been spat out of the system one way or another. So psychiatrists themselves being at the top of the totem pole and thinking like this is pretty rare. I only know a handful of people who meet that criteria. And but there's a lot of people in the other areas of mental health, psychologists and counselors and social workers and Reiki workers and touch therapists and Ayurvedic therapists and stuff, who really know that the system is inherently broken and is not a good place to send somebody that you care for or love. Then there's lots of communities with them, but they're not well populated with the actual doctors, that's for sure.
And then where are you with um, realizing that? I mean, yeah, like giving someone drugs when, or someone that is not taking personal responsibility for what's going on and wanting to better themselves. Is it absolutely necessary for someone to want to get to that point of wanting to better themselves, or is it, if there's someone who just wants to go through life and put blame on that, it's not my whatever, it's not my fault, um it's not something that I can change and everyone should tiptoe around me? Is that something that's happening that you're seeing? Or
Well, certainly there's a large group of people who are walking around not taking responsibility for their basic life, instead blaming the rough world around them, or their parents, or their siblings, or their friends, or their spouses, or ex-spouses, or ex-partners. They blame other people for their hardship, and that's a pretty common common way of managing life. And in fact, you know, that's what psychiatric conditions really are, is that people tend to take on those conditions so that they can blame the condition rather than take responsibility for their life.
And then I mean, how much do you think that's an issue with what's going on with, people being prescribed something to kind of numb that, or, allow it to be their existence and reality?
What was the first part of the question, please?
So geez. I think it's gone. I think
Okay.
it's out. So I guess it wasn't enough of a question. So I guess then, so as far as, okay, so for prescriptions, how much of that do you think is because that could be helped greatly by just taking responsibility for yourself
Exactly.
and healing the other way, as opposed to, because I assume that's a huge way to bring people in, is to, have this external force that's taking me down, and
Mhm.
I need to and I mean, that seems to opens up for medication in a second. I mean, there's I mean, how much of a difference could the mindset shift of society to, this is something that is I need to work on, as opposed to an external force? How much of an impact would that mindset change have to society?
If people would take responsibility for their lives,
Right.
yeah, it would have a massive, massive impact. It would change everything, of course, fundamentally. Yep.
And so how do you think that could happen in a society such as 2023, even 2023 USA?
It does seem like it's a faraway dream, right? Like a pipe dream, and people tend to really just blame others. And it's a depressing fact that we seem to be a long ways away from the general population just taking responsibility. One way to do it is take responsibility for your life. And then everyone you touch will see that it's possible to take responsibility for your life, and you'll open up those gates for the people who are in your circle and hopefully get a ripple effect.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's not talked about enough either. Is the ripple effect of just going and doing it. And if I think I was talking this the other day with someone about, with them, yeah, stopping drinking, but then then their friends don't want to hang out with them because they see that, okay, well, if Joe can stop drinking, that means I can too. And but then have that part in your head, but without Joe saying, hey, you guys need to stop drinking. Just just I mean, the ripple effect's pretty powerful, and
Yeah,
it's
it's pretty powerful.
easy. Yeah, it's easy to run away from, though, too.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
the easy way out seems to be the driving force between a lot of things these days. And
Yeah,
putting in work seems to be less and less encouraged, or I don't know. I don't know if the reward of what comes from that is being suppressed, or if it's just, I want the easiest way to do this. What can I do where I don't have to do any work?
right. Exactly.
And
That's how people go.
yeah. And so do you think it's usually, when someone comes to you, do you think it's usually later than you think they should have come to you? Or is it the
No,
right
I
time for
don't
them?
think so. Things happen at exactly the right time. I'm a pretty serious proponent of that. Things happen exactly when they should. And I don't have I don't have a criticism that they should have happened earlier or should have happened later. They just tend to happen exactly at the right time.
And so when people want to reach out to you or find your work, where do they go and do that?
So one of the best places to find me is at one of my websites called the Dr. Fred, drfred360.com, where you can get all the copies. There's a lot of freebies there, and you can get copies of couple of my books and a couple of my courses that I've created. And I've created a course called the True Voice course, which actually uses podcasting as a backdrop to help people speak their true voice, just like we're doing today. And then there's a couple books that I've written called Find Your True Voice and then the Creative 8 to help people learn how to communicate effectively, how to rediscover that true self, and then deliver that into the world. But the best place to find me is at Dr. Fred, drfred360.com, or my website is also fine, which is welcometohumanity.net.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Everyone go check that out. And so the other one is welcometohumanity.net.
Welcometohumanity.net. Yeah.
Okay, let me get that in there.
And you can email me at drfred at welcometohumanity.net as well.
Okay.
You get a free copy of my Creative 8 book as well, where you can find that at welcometohumanity.net/Creative 8.
Dr. Fred, is it? Okay.
Dr. Fred at welcometohumanity.net.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay. Dr. Fred, hey, it was great getting to talk with you. I'm happy we got to do this and not knowing where we were going to go, what we we're going to get to. And
yeah,
just
exciting. We had a great conversation. Yeah, really
Yeah,
looking at some difficult issues.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll keep in touch here and talk again sometime soon. All right.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah, you bet, Fred. Dr. Fred. All right. Well, Shitty's doing something. I don't know if you heard that, but Shitty's on to something. So that's my cat. So I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I assume he's getting into a plant. But you guys, that's Dr. Fred. There's a lot of ways to communicate with him, and I'll put that all in the show notes. And thank you guys again so much for listening here on the Quantum Global Broadcasting Network, QGBN. Again, I'm your host, Rusty Diamonds, the Public Access Podcast. And that is the show. Man. Boo.
It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker. It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.
Ernest! Ernest!
Yes, Pee-wee.
You brought the snacks, right?